Welcome back to our channel. In the quiet churn of 1981, amidst Reagan's America and a shifting economic tide, the U.S. Mint moved forward with its routine duties, churning out millions of quarter dollars that would soon find homes in vending machines, glove compartments, and coat pockets across the nation. The design was familiar. George Washington's stoic profile, first etched in 1932 by John Flanagan, still held its post proudly on the obverse. On the reverse, the eagle, wings spread with defiant grace, perched atop a bundle of arrows, a symbol of strength, unity, and the enduring legacy of a republic. In Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, dies were hardened, presses roared, and the copper-nickel-clad quarters continued to pour. Most were indistinguishable from one another, tools of commerce, unnoticed and often unexamined. Yet among these millions, a silent deviation occurred. It wasn't the kind of blunder that drew instant outrage or halted presses. No headlines. No public statements. Just a subtle inconsistency, one nearly invisible to the casual observer, but enough to alter the trajectory of a coin forever. In 1981, the Mint was still dealing with die fatigue and overuse, a problem that had haunted several production years. Dies, overworked from budget constraints and production quotas, began to show minute signs of stress. Polishing errors crept in. Weak strikes became more frequent. And somewhere in the Denver Mint, where precision was expected, demanded, even a single die alignment slipped. Not enough to alert quality control. Not enough to warrant destruction. But just enough. It would take decades for anyone to notice. Years passed. The coin made its way into the world, exchanged for coffee, changed from a gas station, perhaps stuffed into a drawer and forgotten. Its journey was unremarkable until a certain collector, buried in the comforts of routine, stumbled upon something that didn't sit right. At a local coin show in Albuquerque, nestled between glass cases and velvet trays, a dealer offered a pile of circulated 1980s quarters at a discount, 20 for $3. A collector, modest in ambition but relentless in curiosity, fished through the pile with no expectations. It was something about the D mint mark on one coin that caught the light oddly. Not the mint mark itself, but the spacing around it, as though the metal had stretched unnaturally beneath it. He tilted the coin under a fluorescent lamp. The rim, slightly off. The lettering, inconsistent in pressure. Liberty appeared to fade on the left side. The "In God We Trust" motto seemed unusually close to Washington's chin. To most, the quarter looked worn. To him, it looked off. Intrigued but cautious, he pocketed the coin for closer inspection. Back home, under magnification, the story deepened. The obverse was misaligned ever so slightly, a classic Type 1 die misalignment, but there was more. The reading on the edge appeared crushed at certain intervals. There were ghost-like impressions beneath the date, as though a second strike had occurred slightly rotated. He compared it to others from the same year, same mint. None matched. The details didn't scream mint error, they whispered it. The collector sent the coin to a third-party grader, just to validate his hunch. Weeks passed. When the envelope finally returned, the results confirmed what he suspected, and more. The coin was designated as a double-struck, off-center, with a partial collar error, all occurring in a way that made it one of a kind. The grader's notes were breathless. A spectacular and rare example of multiple striking anomalies converging on a single quarter. The coin's origin was unremarkable. Its path, ordinary. But the error had quietly transformed it into something else entirely. Word spread, though slowly. 1981 quarters were common, hundreds of millions minted. Most collectors ignored them, eyes trained on silver or bicentennials. But as this anomaly gained attention, more enthusiasts began combing their hoards. A few found faint echoes, minor off-centers, collar errors. But none matched the trifecta of mistakes this single quarter possessed. A market began to form, thin at first, then swelling as coin forums lit up with speculation. The value, of course, didn't skyrocket overnight. At first, the coin sold privately for just over $100, then reappeared months later on an online auction, fetching $800. The same buyer flipped it the following year for $2,000, citing growing interest in early 80s mint errors. Collectors, once blind to this era, began to reevaluate its significance. The 1980s had been considered a numismatic dead zone by some too recent to be rare, too common to be exciting. But this coin defied that notion. By 2009, it appeared in a public auction with a bold estimate, $5,000. Bidding was fierce, and it closed at nearly double that. The sale made headlines in niche publications. An everyday $250,000 mutation, one article mused. Rumors swirled that other examples were out there, hidden in junk drawers and bank rolls. Error hunters took notice. The coin had become a grail. What made the error so exceptional was the convergence. It wasn't merely off-center. The coin had been struck twice, with the second strike occurring at a slight angle and rotation. The partial color failure caused the edge to flatten inconsistently, creating a bizarre railroad rim effect. But what clinched its uniqueness was a faint, almost poetic shadow image of Washington's bust just beneath the primary strike, like a ghost trapped in metal. It wasn't a double die. It wasn't machine doubling. It was something else, a product of mechanical confusion in a single fateful moment. As experts dissected the error, another surprise emerged. The coin's planchet itself was slightly undersized within tolerance, but barely. A sliver underweight. That discrepancy, combined with a press misfeed, likely triggered the perfect storm. A once-in-a-decade fluke. By 2015, the coin had become legendary. Auction houses mentioned it in previews. Collectors referenced it in YouTube videos. Its last known sale, according to public records, occurred at a private collector's estate auction. The hammer fell at an astonishing $34,500. The winning bidder was anonymous. The coin hasn't surfaced since. Then came the twist. In 2022, a regional coin dealer in Colorado stumbled upon something strange during a routine inventory check. While cataloging a bulk shipment of circulated coins for resale, he discovered a 1981 quarter that bore remarkable similarities to the original error coin. It wasn't identical, but it had the off-center strike, partial color flattening, and ghost-like doubling. Though less dramatic, the resemblance was uncanny. News spread fast. Experts descended. Was it a copy? A counterfeit? But metallurgical analysis confirmed the coin's authenticity. It was genuine, and it bore signs of the same misfeed die sequence. What no one had anticipated was this: the original coin might not have been alone. In a quiet lab, a numismatist studied the coins under high-resolution scanning. Using layered imaging, he uncovered a disturbing pattern. Both coins showed markers that traced back to the same die pair. One likely struck in the early part of the die's life, the other near the end, suggesting a narrow production window, maybe a few thousand coins. A blink in time. And in that blink, perhaps more survivors existed. But here's the catch: only these two had surfaced. Only these two bore all the hallmarks. And no official mint records indicated a press malfunction in that window. The error didn't exist in any documented batch. Some speculated the coins were the result of a quiet shift test, an unsanctioned press calibration using production dies. A possibility that, if true, would make them the equivalent of mint ghosts. Struck and circulated without oversight. Phantom quarters. The original collector, now semi-retired, was approached for comment. He declined. But insiders say he still follows auction reports, waiting to see if a third coin appears. If it does, the entire valuation of the 1981 D series could shift. The era once overlooked may yet become a hotbed of discovery. Collectors today still check their change, fingers brushing over the face of Washington as if waiting for it to whisper a secret. The 1981 D error has become more than a coin, it's a story of hidden value, of overlooked detail, of silent anomalies that defy expectations. It's a reminder that even in the most routine years, under the most ordinary conditions, magic can still slip through the cracks in metal and time. And as long as pockets still jingle and tills still ring somewhere, perhaps, another whispering quarter waits to be found. In the churn of 1986, as America pushed forward through the final years of the Cold War and technology crept into every corner of daily life, the U.S. Mint performed its duties with the rhythmic precision of a well-oiled machine. Millions of quarters emerged from its presses, copper nickel clad and stamped with a portrait that had long stood the test of time. George Washington, facing left, solemn and dignified, remained untouched by the shifting tides of design or modern reinterpretation. Flanagan's original vision persisted, carved now more by routine than reverence. The year was unremarkable on the surface. In Philadelphia and Denver, quarters flowed by the tens of millions. In San Francisco, proof coins were struck with care and boxed for collectors. There was nothing to suggest that within this tide of everyday currency, anything extraordinary had occurred. The machinery ran on schedule. The dies were set, inspected, aligned, and replaced according to protocol, and yet, beneath that appearance of perfection, a subtle lapse emerged. Somewhere within the Denver Mint, among the sound of clashing dies and rattling planchets, a die deteriorated faster than expected. Whether it had been overused or improperly polished, no one could say for sure. But under the pressure of relentless minting, it began to break down. Microfractures appeared, a flaw invisible to the naked eye, until the day it became something more. The result was a striking anomaly, a deviation so quiet it remained hidden for decades, tucked away in wallets and piggy banks. No alarms. No shutdowns. Just a tiny rebellion stamped into metal. It wouldn't be until years later that someone noticed. He was a casual collector from Iowa, a schoolteacher with a passion for history and a growing fascination with mint errors. He'd spend evenings sifting through pocket change, not expecting much, but always hopeful. On a sleepy March evening in 2010, he poured a small bag of quarters onto his kitchen table, most destined for a coin roll return. One 1986 D quarter caught his eye, not for its condition, but for something, irregular. At first, it looked ordinary. The wear was typical, the luster long gone. But when he tilted it under the yellow glow of his kitchen light, something shifted. The rim seemed uneven, thicker on one side, thinner on the other. United States of America, curved awkwardly, as if nudged from its rightful position. The bust of Washington leaned closer to the edge than usual. The spacing felt unnatural. With growing curiosity, he fetched his magnifier. That's when he saw it, just beneath the surface of the obverse, a faint doubling of the profile, not from die deterioration, but a secondary strike ever so slightly rotated. It wasn't just a misalignment. The coin had been struck twice, once properly, and again with a shifted die. The reverse bore similar oddities. The eagle's wingtips blurred at the ends, and one talon seemed stretched. It wasn't dramatic, like a clipped planchet or a full off-center strike. It was subtle, almost elegant in its error. He ran his fingers over it, feeling the raised metal near the rim. The edge, partially flattened, bore evidence of a collar failure. This was more than wear, and tear. It was the beginning of something special. He sent it for verification. The grading service responded with an unexpected designation, double struck with rotated second strike and partial collar. The grader's note added, well-centered second strike with distinct design offset, rare for circulation issues of this era. That changed everything. The collector posted the findings on a coin forum. At first, the response was mild. Error coins from the 80s didn't typically ignite much attention. But as higher resolution photos emerged, the tone shifted. Other collectors examined their 1986 D quarters and found nothing comparable. A few found minor misalignments, but none with the layered complexity of this piece. This wasn't just a mint mistake, it was a near-perfect storm of events. The coin was offered at a small regional auction later that year. The estimate? $300. It sold for $1.50. From there, its legend grew. The error community began hunting for more. Roll hunters flooded bank branches asking for 1986 quarters. A few surfaced slide off centers, soft double strikes, but nothing close in clarity or preservation. The Iowa teacher's find remained the gold standard, referenced in collector guides and blog articles. Its value began to climb as whispers turned to inquiries, and inquiries into offers. The market, once indifferent to the 1986 quarter, began shifting. What was once dismissed as a mundane year gained new mystique. Dealers began labeling bags of circulated 1986 quarters as unchecked for errors. Demand spiked. Some turned profits simply reselling ordinary examples with the hope of discovery attached. By 2017, the original coin changed hands again, this time quietly, through a private dealer specializing in U.S. mint errors. The sale price, $8,000. The dealer, in a rare interview, called it the most refined multi-error quarter of the decade, from the most unexpected year. What puzzled experts most wasn't just the error, but its uniqueness. Why only one? Why such precision in the second strike? Normally, double strikes occurred off-center, partial, chaotic. This one had symmetry almost in tension. Metallurgic tests confirmed it was struck on a standard-clad planchet with no anomalies in composition. Its weight, 5.67 grams, fell within tolerance. The flaw was purely mechanical, yet hauntingly precise. Then came a surprise buried deep in the mint's internal memos, uncovered by a researcher piecing together odd reports. In early 1986, the Denver Mint documented a malfunction involving one press that required temporary calibration. A shift technician noted that the press was paused mid-run and resumed before the dies had been properly reset. The record was routine, buried in mundane operational logs. No coins were flagged. Could this have been the origin? It fit. The time, the location, the type of press. But the number of coins affected, if any, was unknown. Only one, perhaps two, have ever matched the Iowa coin's traits. And the second, verified in 2023, was graded -50 Australian dollars with weaker doubling and more wear. It sold at auction for just over $3,200. The original coin, however, has remained off the market since its last known private sale. Rumors place it in a high-security vault in Chicago, owned by a collector who specializes exclusively in off-designated mint errors with historic paper trails. Collectors still check their change. The 1986 D, once a footnote in circulation history, is now seen with different eyes. Every quarter of that year holds a sliver of potential, an echo of a moment when machinery and metal misaligned, not catastrophically, but artfully. The final valuation of that first coin, as of its most recent confirmed appraisal in 2024, $14,750. Not bad for a piece once passed over as pocket change. In the unassuming churn of 1990, a year caught between decades of change and anticipation, the U.S. Mint continued its steadfast mission of coin production. Quarters were pressed in the millions, routine and uninterrupted, mostly from the Philadelphia and Denver mints. These coins, bearing the stoic profile of George Washington on one side and the proud heraldic eagle on the other, rarely invited second glances. After all, the Washington quarter had been a staple since 1932, its design only modestly adjusted through the years. The 1990 issue was not expected to break any molds or stir the waters of numismatic history. It was ordinary. Or so it seemed. In the fluorescent hum of coin-collecting circles, where stories often travel faster than facts, there began whispers, not loud, not certain, but persistent. Something wasn't right with one of the 1990 quarters. A few coin roll hunters noted peculiarities: slightly off-center strikes, strange texturing on the edges, and what looked to be an anomaly in the mint mark. Yet, most dismissed these as common quirks, unworthy of deep attention. The U.S. Mint's machinery, though advanced, wasn't flawless. Errors were part of the background noise in a sea of coinage. But then came a man, let's call him Charles, retired Navy, steady-handed, and known among local collectors for his attention to detail. He'd been collecting since the 1970s, the kind of collector who didn't just look at a coin, but read it like a detective reads a crime scene. He sat at his kitchen table one late autumn evening, sorting through a fresh roll of quarters from a nearby bank, part of his weekly ritual. The television played quietly in the background, barely noticed. His fingers moved with practiced rhythm, scan, flip, set aside. That rhythm stopped when he saw something off. At first, he couldn't place it. The coin had the usual face, George Washington's profile looking as expected. The reverse, too, with the eagle's wings outstretched. But something about it tugged at his instinct. He examined the mint mark, P for Philadelphia, but it wasn't there. His breath hitched. He brought the coin closer, adjusting his lamp. No. P. No. D. No mint mark at all. Could it be a worn-out example? He checked the rest of the coin. Sharp rims, strong details, no evidence of circulation where in the area where the mint mark should have been. It hadn't worn away. It had never been there. Charles knew the implications. Since 1980, the Philadelphia Mint had been placing mint marks on all denominations except the cent. A 1990 quarter without a mint mark shouldn't exist, not from that era. Not unless something had gone awry. He didn't sleep that night. He cross-referenced guidebooks, forums, auction records. No official records indicated a mint markless 1990 quarter as a recognized error. This wasn't listed, cataloged, or validated. And yet, he held it in his hand, weighty with mystery. He reached out to numismatic experts, cautiously at first. Responses trickled in skepticism, curiosity, then intrigue. One expert requested high-resolution photos. Another asked if he could see the coin in person. Charles obliged. The coin was examined under microscopes, compared to other 1990 quarters. It was genuine, of the correct weight and composition, cuperticle clad, standard 5.67 grams, 24.3 millimeters in diameter. The absence of the mint mark wasn't due to post-mint damage or surface abrasion. It had, indeed, never been struck with one. The coin became a topic of debate among niche collectors. Was this a single anomaly? A one-off planchet that escaped proper processing? Or was there more lurking in circulation, quietly passing through vending machines and parking meters, unnoticed and undervalued? As months passed, similar coins were occasionally reported. Not many, only a handful. Enough to suggest that a small batch may have been produced in error, perhaps due to a die that had not been properly punched with the mint mark, or a technician's oversight during a die replacement. But it remained speculative. The U.S. Mint, when contacted, issued no official comment. Their silence only deepened the enigma. By 1995, Charles's coin had been graded and encapsulated, now accompanied by a small plaque bearing the words, 1990 quarter no mint mark error. The grading service labeled it as mint error, and interest around it began to spread. At first, it was a novelty valued modestly higher than face, then in the tens of dollars. By the turn of the millennium, with online auction platforms enabling greater reach, collectors from across the country began seeking out these elusive errors. Prices surged to 3 digits. One such coin, nearly identical in appearance to Charles's find, sold quietly in a private sale for $450. Yet, the coin remained on the fringe of numismatic fame. Its value didn't skyrocket immediately. Unlike high-profile double die cents or off-metal errors, the mint mark omission on the 1990 quarter was subtle, easily overlooked. And therein lay its charm, an error hidden in plain sight, traveling unnoticed for years. Some called it a ghost coin. Others believed it to be an urban legend until they saw one. It wasn't until 2010 that the story took an unexpected turn. A dealer from Arizona, known for bulk buying and rapid turnaround sales, stumbled upon a curious lot of quarters sourced from a Las Vegas casino. Among them was a coin that bore the unmistakable markers of the 1990 mint-mark error, except for one haunting detail. The obverse and reverse didn't align properly. The eagle on the reverse was rotated nearly 90 degrees from the normal upright position. A dual anomaly. The dealer submitted the coin for authentication. The grading came back with a jaw-dropping designation. 1990 quarter, no mint mark, rotated die error MS64. Two rare errors converging on a single coin. Numismatic forums lit up. This wasn't just a mint mark omission, it was a rotational misalignment as well. Combined, these elements elevated the coin from curiosity to headline. Collectors began revisiting their own 1990 quarters, hunting for overlooked variations. The original mint-markless coins gained renewed interest. Auction houses began listing them more frequently, often with reserve prices. By 2015, examples in mint state condition were fetching over $1,200. The market became cautious, then feverish. Forgeries appeared, coins doctored to appear mint-markless. The grading services adjusted their procedures, increasing scrutiny on 1990 quarters. Charles, long since retired from collecting actively, watched the rise of his discovery with quiet pride. He still had the coin, stored securely. Inquiries came often, with offers sometimes exceeding $5,000. But he never sold. "It's not just the coin," he said once in a local interview. "It's the moment it gave me the jolt, the wonder. That's worth more." But the story didn't end there. In late 2021, a well-known numismatic researcher examining archival footage of the Philadelphia Mint noticed something odd in a training video recorded in late 1989. In one brief frame, barely 2 seconds, a technician is seen replacing a die on a press line. The die lacks a mint mark. Whether it was a prototype, an error, or a placeholder remains unclear. But it gave fresh weight to a possibility long dismissed, that the 1990 mint mark error wasn't merely an oversight. It may have stemmed from a transitional process between mint mark application protocols. If this were true, it meant the error was born not from randomness, but from the process of progress itself. A transition between procedures, an administrative wrinkle that rippled through the machinery and left behind a handful of anomalies. Unintended fingerprints of change. The market responded with a ripple of its own. Auction prices climbed again. A certified MS65 example went under the hammer in early 2023 for an astonishing $7,850. The buyer was anonymous. The seller had acquired it years prior for $80. Today, the 1990 no mint mark quarter stands quietly among the pantheon of modern U.S. coin errors, not the loudest, not the rarest, but certainly one of the most mystifying. Its appearance is deceptively normal, its story anything but. From an accidental find on a kitchen table to a coin commanding thousands, it exemplifies the curious dance of chance, history, and observation, and in that dance, there's always room for one more twist. Recently, a collector in Oregon reported yet another 1990 quarter with no mint mark. This one bore faint doubling on the date, subtle, nearly imperceptible. If confirmed, it would represent a previously undocumented variation, a triplet of errors: no mint mark, rotated reverse, and doubled die. Experts are still examining it. No one has drawn conclusions yet. But the whispers have returned. A coin like that, if genuine, could rewrite what collectors thought they knew about the 1990 issue. The 1990 quarter continues its quiet journey through pockets, drawers, and displays, never shouting, always waiting for the right eyes to notice. A relic of routine interrupted. A mistake made immortal.